Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation, with a little bit of breaking news. The LME is to halt gold and silver futures trading. Let's explore! Indeed, just found this across the wires. And I tell you what, it sends a pretty strong message. As we take a look and see what exactly happened here. I think a lot of it has to do with what occurred with this organization and nickel not too long ago. Now, as one may think that this is a pretty big deal, all things considered, when you look at it, it is not a huge change from the status quo, but it sends a strong message, I believe, to the status quo and to the larger organizations. Let's look at this story from Reuters that talks about it here. The London Metal Exchange plans to scrap its precious metals futures due to low levels of trading activity, it said on Friday. Now, could this have to do with the nickel situation? I don't know. There'll be another video on that topic. But this, I think, bolsters that activity, because that shocked the whole commodities markets when nickel skyrocketed in price and trading stopped in that world there. Last October, sources told Reuters that banks that partnered with the LME to launch gold and silver futures in 2017 were preparing to abandon the project after hoped-for volumes did not materialize. Indeed. So this is something that was kind of in the works for a little while here. The exchange, the largest or the world's oldest and largest market for industrial metals, said in a statement on Friday it expected to complete the withdrawal of gold and silver contracts by July. The exchange said it took the decision after discussions with market participants in light of the low levels of trading activity. So again, this is a reason. This is the reason why they're closing down, and obviously this is going to have very minimal impact on the precious metal prices. But it sends a message here. There's several lessons we can learn from this. More on that in a moment. The move ends an attempt by the LME to capture part of London's bullion market, which is the world's largest, with gold worth some $17 trillion, changing hands last year. Now, this sentence is referring to the London Bullion Market Association, the LBMA, which is a huge competitor, so it's obvious that they had a pretty big behemoth to try to compete with there, and they knew they couldn't do it. The LME launched the contracts with partners including Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, who agreed to promote trade in them in return for 50% of revenues generated. Yes, indeed. So there you go. That's the look at the partners there with Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. The project partners had hoped tightening regulation would push bullion trading in London away from the over-the-counter deals between banks and brokers to exchanges, which regulators see as safer and more transparent. That's pretty interesting there. The LME is owned by Hong Kong Exchange and Clearing Limited, and that is kind of where things sit. So this is although this in and of itself is going to have, again, as I cannot stress enough, will have minimal to no impact at all in the price of gold and silver, because of the vast majority of that is traded through the COMEX and the LBMA. But one thing we do know, that what occurred there with the LME with nickel, I think probably had accelerated this move, and they knew, hey, this was coming. So the LME is mainly, a industrial metal or organization here, as it says, that they basically do work with they typically don't work with precious metals. Industrial metals are their mainstay there. So we're trying to work into that market. However, one can make a very strong argument that silver is more of an industrial metal than a monetary metal. But I digress. But nonetheless, gold traded certainly by the LBMA and by the COMEX, and those futures contracts are certainly not under threat on with this situation. But the lesson here is that if people stop trading gold and silver futures and they stop buying the paper, the derivatives of these metals, and only bought the physical, well, we could crash JP Morgan, we could crash the COMEX, we could crash the LBMA by not buying in those worlds. But the vast majority of people hearing my voice now probably only buy in those areas. In other words, they're mostly in the stock market, and they put a little bit to hedge themselves in the derivatives contracts and the futures, gold and silver futures contracts, and the ETFs. And those people are not hearing this message, more than likely. Yea, though, there are several who do watch this channel who dive into both worlds. In other words, they have the physical and they also have the electronic, and so they may do that in order to diversify or to easily liquidate without having to go to a local coin shop, suffer the loss of premiums, to be able to maximize the return based off of spot price, or they may trade the ratio. They may trade the ratio from one metal to the other. That is actually outlined in a book called Trading the Ratio that I had actually reviewed some time ago. There's 2 volumes of that edition out now, but it's pretty interesting and fascinating how things are done. And again, I'm not against those who want to diversify into those worlds, into the ETFs, but realize that what you are buying is not backed by the physical, or it's not very easily backed by the physical. In this image here, we can see the contract-sized silver bars, and silver in different various forms here. To actually have that physical and hold it in hand, you can see this is a lot of weight, and holding that weight is something that certainly it's cumbersome and can be cumbersome. And so people that do diversify and put their money into ETFs, well, you avoid huge large premiums, and you avoid having to take delivery. A lot of those don't want to take delivery. I have a friend who had decided, well, I want to get into precious metals, but I don't want the physical. I want to be able to just trade it on my app. Like, okay, well, there you go. You can do it, but they're not backed by. You're not going to be able to get the silver or gold if you go to, quote, cash out. And they're like, okay, that's fine. I don't really want it. I just want to have exposure to it. And that's just it. All of the paper options out there for the futures, the ETFs, they're not backed by the physical, save for one. It's called PSLV, and I think it's the Sprott. They actually are backed by the physical, though it's very difficult to actually cash out and take delivery. So that is one concern there. So there you have it. There's the report on this situation. Fascinating indeed. But gold and silver, and again, with this organization, the LME, London Metal Exchange, could this be the beginning or a little bit of a message to the LBMA that, hey, they are at the mercy of the people that are involved in the organization? It's a behemoth organization, huge, the London Bullion Market Exchange. And so is the COMEX. A lot of people utilize it, and that kind of world is very large, complex, and likely not to fall anytime soon. But this very well could be the beginning of something, of a message that is sent. What cannot crash, what cannot be done away with, that is physical gold and silver itself, and the people that hold those metals. The people that hold those metals are protected by the intrinsic value of the metals that they hold, gold and silver. That is not going away. That's been around for thousands of years. You've heard me talk about stories of found precious metals treasure, especially in the United Kingdom and other places, of hoards of silver or gold coins that have been buried for literally thousands of years, pulled out of the ground looking brand new, like the day they came from the mint in some cases. That kind of stuff is not going away, no matter how complex these markets can be. And when you have a complex market situation like this, it's going to raise a lot of red flags and questions. And again, that's something that I've become more and more open to in terms of what's been going on in the precious metal markets. I believe it warrants investigation, further investigation. And this, I believe, is a message to us all to hold the physical. It's worth the premiums, I believe, to hold the physical. And I know that's what I'm going to continue to do, and find ways to protect yourself as you do hold the physical. Spread that wealth around to different locations. Have it well guarded, well protected, and you will be okay. So there you go. There's your news for the day. Very interesting indeed. I hope you found this video useful and insightful and informative. I would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.